Another day, yet more violence. And the further we get away from the entire reason why these riots took place. If you didn't see the show last night, may I say very clearly what cannot be ignored. The death of the man at the heart of all of this was a murder. The person responsible, the police officer, should be charged with something a whole lot more serious than third-degree murder, and the police that did nothing about it should also be charged. I can understand why, for a day, there was a certain uprising that took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But this, of course, is fanned out all the way across the country. Now, for some, they may have genuine historic grievances that are worth discussing. But then there are others who are just up for the fight. And they're up for the fight for a lot of different reasons. As I told you last night, and I repeat this evening, beware those who will overly simplify this as all good or all bad. Because it is, like an onion, many, many layers, and all of them become pretty painful. But you can't pretend that people looting shops has anything to do with police brutality. You can't pretend that setting fire to union buildings or churches, again, has anything to do with police brutality. You can't pretend that Donald Trump is personally or even tangentially responsible for what's happening here. Now, should he get in front of a camera and give a national address to try to calm the country down? Of course, it's part of what leadership is required. But you can't lose sight of what is going on here. We're now coming up on a week since the death took place. And we're now starting to see a particularly nasty strain of extremists who are starting to get involved in ginning up these crowds, bringing on part of the violence. And the further we get away from the initial reporting, you've got plenty of people in the media who want to outdo each other for sensationalism, for riot porn, for pretending that they are the story. And something that I call out continuously on this show, it has seen me lose many a job opportunity, although I have the best one in the world right now, and lost many friends, is this line between straight news reporting versus editorialising. There's a report that came from the UK. I think you might have seen it sometime across the day here at Sky News. This is an editorial. This is not a news report. But of course, it's straight news, not that evil opinion stuff. Roll the tape.
The White House, the source and the site of such anguish, now treated as a target as America burns.
Stop it there. The White House, the source of for who? Not for these protesters, because the incident didn't happen there. The incident, of course, happened in Minnesota, several states away. But because it's Donald Trump, then somehow this is where anguish is? Anyway, keep rolling.
The historic St. John's Church nearby was set on fire, and a union building.
The union building was from the AFL-CIO. It's their version almost of the ACTU. They have come out and they're a hardcore left-wing union. There is no reason that they were attacked apart from they were there. Again, no suggestion that this is bad. Somehow the epicentre of anguish that is the White House equals all buildings that happen to have a view of the White House deserve to be torched. Keep going.
The president blames much of this on Antifa, a radical left-wing group he says the US has designated as a terrorist organisation.
Stop it again, because you see, when he says it, it must be fake news, right? It must be made up, it must be a distraction. Now, we'll have a chat to Rowan Dean about this a bit later in the show, about what Antifa is, about what they really are about. But they are the people who use violence to shut down what they consider to be extremists, most often racists. This is the group that the president wants to ban as terrorists. Such charming little people, aren't they? Because, of course, righteousness is on their side, and therefore, if you are not righteous, then you deserve to be banned from speaking, confronted in all places. Anyway, continue.
The situation in New York looked just as stark. Officers deployed to the Barclays Center and told to prepare for a fully fledged riot.
But nothing happened. Why is that even in the story? Police need to prepare for the worst possible situation, and the worst possible situation did not happen. It's only about 2 minutes into a 3-minute story that you get any sort of negative mention of what's been happening.
But along with despair has come destruction. In Santa Monica, more looting as criminals capitalise on the chaos.
Don't you love the bloke when he's trying to steal things? Oh, I've been on camera, but I won't drop the stuff that I've stolen. But of course we have to go back to this all sort of being America's fault, somehow being Trump's fault. One more time, this reporter giving news, not opinion.
It has become something much bigger, a release for those who feel there is nothing left to lose after decades of oppression, pain and far too little progress. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Washington.
She's spoken to every one of them? That was an editorial, not a news report, but an example of what is running everywhere. I repeat, what happened to the guy, disgraceful. Life in jail, or worse, depending on what the state law is in Minnesota. Lots of time in jail for the people who didn't get involved. Are there historic, systemic issues involving the African American population in the United States? You bet. We can't pretend that the 1960s is not in the lifetime of some people, or certainly in the lifetime of their parents and definitely their grandparents. But the idea that, well, this is something bigger. And as predicted last night, this is now picking up to places that have no connection whatsoever to what happened in the United States. There are protests in Germany. China has also decided to have its little say.